Hello and welcome back to Continental Club, where once again we are breaking down the hottest topics in European football. Joining me today, we've got Michael McCubs and Henry Hill. How are you, McCubs?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks, Dougs. Not too bad. Just
Good.
about over
Ticking
Tuesday night.
Yes, I know. It does take a while after a defeat. It can be a weepy few days. But Henry, are you in a better mood than McCubs? Your team hasn't lost for a little while. Well, at least in the Champions League.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure we did lose last weekend. No, I'm alright. I was thinking that I haven't seen either of you two almost, although we talk a number of times every week, I haven't even seen either of you two in almost a year. So, which, that is actually a really long time to not see someone, I suppose. So I don't know. I mean, certainly, McCubs has aged quite a lot. I'm sure it's the same for you two.
Oh yeah, thanks, mate.
But obviously, I've definitely aged.
Obviously, you two meet up because I don't get invited to the sort of top table of football daily parties, which you two attend. But
top table of football daily? We haven't done one party.
The only time I've seen Dukes has been the fleeting moment that he ran past me in Richmond Park. That's literally
yes. It. Before I nearly got speared by a deer. Yes, I remember.
Well,
that. But no.
All I mean to say is it'd be, the idea of actually seeing you in person would be nice one day.
It would be nice.
Absolutely. I promise you're not really missing out. I haven't changed at all, and there haven't been any football daily parties before you all get in the comments saying we're not COVID aware. We haven't been meeting up. Don't know what Henry is on about. Anyway, let's get on with the show after that, because today we'll talk about the January transfer window and potential crazy deals that could happen. Because at Swagato Saka 99, the boy himself said, what do you think, or who do you think will be the biggest transfer in the January window? Obviously, January is coming in just 21 days now. So the silly season speculation is beginning to start. There's plenty of unhappy players throughout Europe. So today we are breaking that down. And today, Michael McCubs, we have to start with Monsieur Paul Pogba, who has been the story of the week.
Yeah, I mean, he has been, hasn't he? And obviously, we've spoken about him a decent amount, especially on Football Daily, to put a couple of videos out about him this week. So apologies if you're already sick of hearing about it. But yeah, it does need to be spoken about, doesn't it? Because I think this is probably the most telling episode in what has been the kind of, Paul Pogba kind of saga of sorts in the last couple of years at Man United. He's never been too far away from the back pages in terms of his situation and his future. And yeah, it now looks very, very real that he's going to leave, doesn't it? Obviously, those comments made by Mino Raiola, we've got over them already. I'm sure most people watching will have heard what he's had to say on the matter. And yeah, obviously very poorly timed. Day before United's crucial tie with RB Leipzig. Although I don't think it had as much of a destabilising kind of effect as many have kind of made out. Obviously, the media, including ourselves, like to, maybe exaggerate a little bit that kind of effect. But it seemed to me, at least, that Solskjaer had already decided that Pogba wasn't going to start that game against Leipzig. He played two holding midfielders. If he'd really wanted to make a statement, I think he would have played Donny van der Beek instead of him. Even then, Pogba started on the weekend, which he doesn't normally do. I think that was a sign already that he'd already decided that Pogba wasn't going to play. And as for the team's performance, I think, I don't know, were there any signs that this team were, morale was low as a result of this Pogba news? I don't think so. I just don't think United were good enough on the night, essentially. So I think we can kind of put that to bed. United probably would have gone out of the Champions League, whether or not Raiola had spoken or not. However, still obviously not what United would want to hear in that moment. Obviously, the two parties have a pretty fractious relationship. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is clearly not a fan at all of Raiola, just as Alex Ferguson wasn't. And yeah, Raiola kind of, that's kind of how he does his job, isn't it? By kind of riling clubs up a little bit. He's kind of afraid to do whatever's necessary to get what he perceives to be the best deal for himself and his clients. So yeah, not wholly surprising really in the way that he's gone about this. But yeah, like I said, it is very telling. I think United clearly have been preparing for Paul Pogba's departure. Signing Bruno Fernandes last January, signing Donny van der Beek in the summer. I don't think I can remember a time when United signed two players with such kind of similar skill sets, I guess. Obviously, they are different players, but they are both attack-minded central midfielders, or at least attack-minded midfielders, at least. in such a short space of time, especially when they've got a player like Paul Pogba in that position already. It does feel like the club were already preparing for him leaving at some stage. I guess what this kind of latest kind of development has told us is that could happen a bit sooner than expected. I think probably it was going to happen next summer. Now it could happen in January. And obviously this has been, I guess, accentuated by Pogba's start to the season. It's been horrific, hasn't it? I mean, I don't want to get over dramatic about it, but like considering this was a player who I think was by far and away United's best player for much of his time at Old Trafford, and in the first 3 years of his time at Old Trafford was probably in the top 2 most consistent performers, despite what some kind of naysayers might say. The start of the season has been pretty awful. Obviously he was coming back from COVID at the end of the summer. There was no pre-season basically for United as well, so fitness was always going to be a bit of an issue for him. We probably expected to see his performances drop off a little bit, but they've dropped off in such a way that I couldn't really believe how bad he was in those opening few games. He's almost not involved at all in the side's attacking play. His creative numbers have completely dropped. He's creating a chance, I think, less than one every 2 games now, whereas before he was creating over 2 chances a game. And whereas before, I think, post lockdown, in that kind of summer period, it looked like having that kind of having the creative burden shifted to Bruno Fernandes seemed to almost help him out a little bit. It looked like they complemented each other quite well in the midfield. It looked like Pogba was ready to take a bit of a back seat and kind of feed Bruno the ball, kind of do his thing, be able to kind of take on players. Matic was back in form, wasn't he? It kind of looked like things were kind of on the up for Pogba following that long injury layoff. It now looks like the kind of opposite has happened. It almost looks like he doesn't even really have a purpose in this side anymore. So I think it's fair to say that this is something that suits all parties, which is kind of what Ryla was saying as well. And I think United can probably see this as a bit of an opportunity now. He's valued as around 72 million pounds. Sorry, I don't think they'll get that for him. I think they'll be happy, to be honest, with something between kind of 50 and 60 million. And that's money that could potentially be reinvested in an area of the squad that really needs work. Central defensive midfield for sure, and I think the right wing slot as well. 2 positions where United just don't have any real, defensive midfield, there are some good options there, but not the kind of world-class midfielder that's needed for that, for kind of that system to work. And the right wing, United just don't have a right winger, do they? There's opportunities there. Obviously, what's been talked about a lot has been the idea of a swap deal, especially if it were to happen in January, and the usual names have cropped up in terms of PSG, Real Madrid and Juventus. I think Paulo Dybala has been the most hotly linked with a swap deal. We'll get onto Paulo Dybala's Juventus situation in a bit, but for me, I'm not sure that's really particularly enticing from a United perspective. United have gone in for him before. It's been clear that he's not really wanted to leave Juve, or at least wasn't particularly keen on a move to United from what I can, from what I've kind of gathered. I know there was a lot of talk of it kind of being, the deal being quite close and whatnot, but I don't know, the general impression I get is that Dybala was never that keen on a move to United, and I think that's obviously something that's quite important to Solskjaer in terms of his project, that players really buy into playing for United and whatnot, and kind of 100% committed to the club. And also he doesn't solve one of those 2 problems straight away, does he? He can play on the right of an attack, and who knows, he could be fantastic, but equally he's not a player who I'd have that much confidence in that he'd come in and slot into the system straight away. I just don't feel like, although he has an amazing skill set, I don't know if it's necessarily one that's suited to this particular United team. And then I guess you've got Real Madrid and PSG, like I was saying. Not as much talk about them at the moment, but I think they'll always be in with a shout. And Pogba would obviously love to move to Real Madrid. I'm sure he'd probably welcome a move to PSG if Real Madrid or Juventus wasn't possible. But all of those clubs were really scrimping in the summer, weren't they? Juve were only making loan moves at the end of the window, as were PSG, rather desperately. Real Madrid just weren't spending at all. and I feel like they're mainly budgeting for next summer when it's clear that they're holding out for Mbappe still being kind of having a year left on his contract in Paris. So yeah, it's hard to tell exactly what will happen at this stage. I think this January window is going to be a bit of an odd one. It's quite unpredictable, to be honest. But yeah, I think from a United perspective, I think you need to try and hold out for money as much as possible, because I just think a swap deal, you're gonna have to settle for someone. You're not gonna have a pick of you're not gonna have the pick of the kind of players that the club needs right now.
I couldn't agree more. I actually think United are in quite a good position in that, as you've pointed out quite rightly, they've got two players that play in Pogba's style, or in his sort of similarish position, or his best position at least, and they should go for that holding midfielder that will make such a difference in terms of protecting that back four, which has been shaky in recent weeks, and progressing the ball as well. With Matic, since those 4 or 5 games after lockdown, he was superb. He hasn't really looked the same player since. I'm not wholly convinced by Fred or Scott McTominay as of yet either. But Pogba, people need to remember how good he was for those first 3 years at United. 17-18, 18-19, I think he was in the team of the year in 18-19. He was absolutely phenomenal in terms of his output, in terms of his impact in the team, in terms of dominating games. He was everything United were looking for. Unfortunately for him, he's had a nasty ankle injury, he's had COVID, hasn't been able to shake it off, and since he's come back into the side, there's a player in better form who's arguably closer to being what United need and a better player in that position than Paul Pogba. So, it won't be the biggest shame in the world if he moves on for himself. I don't think it'll be the biggest shame for United, and whoever gets him is getting a very good player. It's as simple as that. But let's move on to, McCubs has already mentioned Dybala there, Henry. I mean, he is one of the potential sort of pawns in this move. Do you see him being involved in this?
It's an interesting one. I think we have to look at the Dybala situation as a whole. I will just say, if you want to basically see extrapolate on everything Dougie's just said, we do have a FD explained on what's maybe gone wrong for Pogba at United coming out. It'll have come out before this video goes out as well. So get onto the Football Daily, have a look for that explained video. So a really in-depth look at sort of everything that's happened over the past few years. That'd be a really good thing for you to educate yourselves with there. But Dybala, it's an interesting one. The Juventus sporting director, Fabio Paratici, he did address speculation with Pogba after their midweek victory over Barcelona. He obviously praised Pogba. They admitted they knew him really well, but he did say that any transfer would involve a fee, stating, "We know his price, so we will see what happens." As you said, McCubs, Juventus don't have a ton of money at all. They're pretty cash strapped as it stands. We obviously talked about whether or not Cristiano Ronaldo would leave a few weeks ago. So, any outright transfer, I'll be very surprised to see, which does lead on to this possibility of a swap deal, which according to The Athletic could involve Paulo Dybala. Not the first time this has popped up, but one thing's for sure, something's not quite right with Dybala at Juventus. It's a real seesaw of emotions with his career there. And in 17-18, he netted 22 times. Then he only hit 5 a year later. And then last season, he got 11 and was even named I think he's named the Serie A most valuable player, if I remember correctly. So, but then it's really rocketed back the other way again this year. He's only scored 1 goal and provided 0 assists in 11 UCL and league games. I think that goal came against Ferencváros in the Champions League, so not really at all what you'd expect from him. And it's quite plain to see that Andrea Pirlo just doesn't really fancy him too much at the moment. 13 players in the Juventus squad have made more than his 361 minutes in the league so far. And I think a real key telling point to what's kind of the issue there is that his shots are actually up from 4.2 to 5 per 90. His key passes are still around 2.5, and his dribbles at 1.7. That is a drop on the year before. And his expected goals and assists per 90 are still at 0.67, which is virtually the same as the season before. But the end product's just completely gone, which does point to sort of a deeper issue going on with Dybala. I think it is worth mentioning, this is the 3rd season in a row he's had to play under a new manager. Obviously he had Allegri, and then he had Maurizio Sarri, and now he's got Andrea Pirlo. That's 3 different systems that he's had to readjust to each time. And he is a bit of a slow starter. Last season he didn't start the season particularly well at all, and there was obviously that speculation suggesting that he would move away. You're completely right, McCubbin. I think he was holding out for a ridiculous agent's fee or some signing on fee, which was quite clear from United that he was just trying to sort of buy time. And
he also has really complicated image rights, I seem to remember as well,
yes,
which was quite a sticking point.
That is true. But yeah, it didn't seem like he wanted to leave them. However, in this new Pirlo system, it doesn't really look like he's got much of a place. In 5 out of the last 6 games, Pirlo's gone with 2 strikers up front in either a 3-5-2 or a 4-4-2. And Morata's started so well. Morata's undroppable at the moment in that team. He's got 9 goals in 13 league and UCL games. Obviously, Ronaldo is just being Ronaldo, let's face it. And he's giving a chance to Chiesa and Kulusevski, who are kind of the new 2 young bloods on the wing there as well. I mean, even Bernardeschi's getting minutes ahead of him, which is a bit of a concern.
Yeah.
Dybala's other problem is he doesn't really have a set position. It kind of changes year on year as well. I think he really benefited from having a great relationship with Gonzalo Higuain from the national team as well. And then last year he kind of figured out he needed to play closer in sort of the 2 up front next to Ronaldo in order to get the best out of his relationship with Ronaldo. And he's lost that ability there again with Morata coming into the sides. So yeah, and now he's sort of drifting into positions where he kind of looks a bit lost. If they go 3 up front, there's no reliance on who's going to do the defensive duties in that front 3 of Dybala, Ronaldo and Morata. So it is a bit tricky for him there. And this is meant to be the best moment in Dybala's career. He's 27 years old. He's got a value at around £72 million, similar to the Pogba situation. I think they would probably accept a lot less for that in a outright transfer. And yeah, as far as a professional goes, he's played 40 games in each of his last 5 seasons. He's won 5 league titles and the double on 3 occasions. But despite all of that, it does look like he might need to change in order to kind of unlock that. I don't want to say potential, because at 27 years old, you shouldn't really be saying potential, but in order to consistently hit that ability, which we all know he has. And I think going somewhere where he has a set position and he can just really knuckle down where to play might be useful. I saw Bayern's chairman, Karl-Heinz Rummenigge, he talked about the Dybala link after their game last night, and he said he wasn't really sure about it. He was very surprised to see that. I can't see him going to Bayern Munich at all, really. I think they've got exceptional quality on the wings already, and whilst Thomas Müller continues to perform really well in the central attacking midfield role, I can't see that happening either. I really, once again, it's Real Madrid or a swap to Manchester United. I actually could see him at Manchester United. I think if we consider that Martial is equally kind of frustrating in terms of the consistency of his output, I do think there is maybe a space for him on the wing there. But once again, if we consider that they'll probably go back in for Sancho at some point, I think it may not be money well spent. But yeah, that leads to really whether or not a swap deal could be on the cards, which is, I personally don't see it. I don't think he wants to come to England. I think if he goes anywhere, he'll continue in a more kind of Latin European nation such as Spain. I can't see him coming to England. However, if both sides don't have that money to spend, then maybe this is the only plausible solution. But yeah, I can't quite see it, but certainly think that Dybala's time at Juventus is reaching a really kind of bizarre conclusion.
I feel like it'd almost be lose-lose for the 2 clubs, to be honest, because like you said, Henry, like Dybala's not been able to really get into the system that Pirlo's playing, and Pirlo hasn't played a 4-3-3 once this term, which we know is the system that Pogba enjoys the most, and is where he plays his best football. So unless Pirlo was going to change his system just to suit Pogba and build the team around him, I don't really see how even Pogba going to Juventus is a particularly good move. I
agree with you. I mean, it's all well and good Paratici saying, we love Pogba, we all know how good he is. I mean, their midfield is really stacked already. I mean, Weston McKennie's looking really good. Even Aaron Ramsey played very well the other day. Artur hasn't even featured all too much, and Bentancur, all these other kind of players. All these other players who are there or thereabouts. I don't actually know how Pogba just... I mean, maybe he does waltz into that team. I'm not sure. Maybe Morata going back there and rediscovering his best form is a good sign for maybe some of these ex-Juventus players. But yeah, I'm not totally... Real Madrid for me is the only really shoe-in move for him, considering that Modric and Kroos are entering a point in their careers where they're getting older and older, and they probably do need a world-class midfielder in that midfield who could slot in. And Pogba, that's the only one I can see happening. But as you addressed earlier, whether or not they're even budgeting for him either is a strange one. So yeah, I think everyone's sort of in a bit of a limbo situation about where they'll be going.
Yeah, Casemiro, Fede Valverde and Pogba is a pretty mouth-watering midfield, I have to say, with regular minutes from Kroos as well. But back to Dybala briefly, I really enjoy watching Dybala play. I think he's a phenomenal technician. I think his output's been pretty good, considering the fact that he's never really felt like he was the number one since at least sort of 17-18, when he was in fantastic form. He's had a hell of a lot of different strike partners in that time. He's had a lot of bigger rivals, and now he needs a move that's going to suit him for the rest of his career. But where that is to, I'm really unsure. The club that probably needs him the most is Arsenal, but I can't see him swapping Juventus for Arsenal anytime soon. I would have potentially said Atleti in the summer as a backup to João Felix as well, but I don't think they'll go for him. So I'm really kind of at a loss for Dybala. But, you know, we're talking of Atleti, let's talk about their rivals Real Madrid, who have been linking Pogba with as well, because they've got a player on their books in Isco, who is similarly another number 10 or player, creative player, who's going through a really sticky time. He's had a really difficult period. So over the last 4 years, his La Liga starts have gone from 21 to 11 to 15, and this year just 3, and he hasn't started a single Champions League game either. In total, he's played 320 La Liga and Champions League minutes to date this season. 14 players have played more than him in the league, and he is yet to complete a single 90 minutes. And there was that video going around to El Clasico where he was talking to, I think it was Marcelo, and was it Modric on the bench, basically saying Zidane will never use me, etc. And Marcelo was having a good laugh about it, and it all seemed like, it was, said with hurt, but also making a bit of a joke about how he's just completely slipped off the radar. And he's had to watch as 21-year-old Martin Odegaard, who's had massive injury issues this year, missed 7 games with injury, but he's often started ahead of him. He's got 5 League and Champions League starts to his name. And the 28-year-old seems almost certain to leave in January. He's been linked with Arsenal and Everton, and his agent and father, Paco Alcaron, said that he wants to try another league, but also said it won't be a disaster if he waits until the summer as well. I think unless Real Madrid can get in a replacement for him, they're quite unlikely to let him leave in January, given that Odegaard and Isco are really their only sort of number 10 type players. But I don't really see that happening. Ancelotti has also called those reports linking him with Everton as total bull, he said. So Ancelotti's been pretty forthright about that. And, Everton do need depth in attacking areas, but I can't really see them managing to pull off the coup of getting Isco as well, who is still a phenomenal player. Like, there was about 3 years ago that he was looking absolutely insane for Spain, and I was like, he's going to hit a new level, he's going to fulfill that potential that he's had since his days at Malaga, but it just hasn't quite happened for him. And he's just slipped down the pecking order as Zidane's moved to a 4-3-3, which doesn't really suit him. And the trouble is that 4-3-3 is in vogue now throughout world football. I can't really see that many teams playing with a number 10 in the next 2-3 years until football changes once again. So it's going to be really difficult for Isco. He's also missed a hell of a lot of games with injury, 19 games, and his best seasons of 17-18 and 16-17 now seem like quite a long time ago. So Isco's a bit of a troubling one. Another player, another 10 who's having a bit of trouble, Christian Eriksen. He only signed a 4.5-year deal with Inter in January 2020, which sees him earn 10 million euros per season. And remember when that went through, Conte already made noises that he wasn't sort of the player that he really wanted, that he didn't really have a use for him, etc. And I was like, this is trouble brewing big time. He's played 33 games since, many off the bench, only scored 4 goals. This season, 10 League and Champions League games, 0 goal contributions. He's watched from the bench as players like Nainggolan, Vidal, Gagliardini have played way more minutes than him, and he's really sort of the forgotten man of European football, considering this was a man that contributed over 20 league goals in the Premier League for, I think, about 4 years in a row prior to their move to Wembley. Like, he was a phenomenal player, one of the best creators the Premier League has ever seen. He's still, I think, 27, but it's really not happening him. 0 shots so far in Serie A, just 2.1 key passes, 1.7 dribbles per 90, and he's got a hell of a lot to give, but it's just not working for him in Inter Milan. And I feel like the difficulty for him is that he won't get a move back to Spurs. Again, it's looking at Arsenal as probably the only Premier League club that could needs him right now, and they're already struggling as it is. So I'm really lost for Eriksen. But guys, I want to briefly touch before we move on to our big match preview on some of the players that could be moving in January with their contracts running out. I mean, the list whose contracts expires in 2021, it's quite a list of who's who. It's Messi, Alaba, Donnarumma, Depay, Aguero, Wijnaldum, Di Maria, Tovan, Calhanoglu, Milik and Mkhitaryan. I mean, what a list of quality players who might be available on the cheap this January. I mean, Henry, of that list, I mean, is anyone really sort of taking your fancy? I mean, who's your go-to guy in that list, do you think?
Just to be a little bit different, I mean, Calhanoglu, he's obviously had an amazing season for AC Milan right now. It'll be interesting to see if he can replicate that anywhere else. Florian Thauvin as well, he's always kind of been linked with a return to the Premier League since his sort of flop at Newcastle. I think he's got a gear he can go up as well. But yeah, I mean, they're all great names. I still think Di Maria is one of the best big game players in Europe. I think he's the kind of guy you want in your team on a big final or something like that. So I think he could do a job. See, I mean, a great list of players there, undeniably.
Absolutely. I mean, McCubs, just quickly, David Alaba is a name on there, and I haven't seen him linked with Man United whatsoever. But wouldn't he be a great left-sided centre-back to play alongside Maguire?
I'd absolutely love him. I think out of all those players, obviously Messi's in there as well, but Messi's an unrealistic option. I think Alaba is the one player on that list, apart from maybe Donnarumma. But Alaba, like even a team with a decent defence, Alaba will get into it. Like, yeah, obviously he can play left back, probably the best left-sided centre-back in world football last season. Obviously can play left back as well. He would definitely be my pick. There's a few players in there. I feel like Mkhitaryan, I feel like Çalhanoğlu. I feel like they're set to sign new contracts. I think Wijnaldum as well. I really can't see Liverpool letting Wijnaldum go. I think that would be very silly of them. But yeah, Alaba, Donnarumma, and Depay, I think, are the real hot properties out of those players.
Absolutely, and I don't know whether Aguero will sign a new deal as well, so it'd be interesting to see where he ends up as well. But guys, that was our list of players who could move in a crazy January window. Do you see any of those happening, and where will Pogba go if he leaves at all? Let us know in the comments down below, and let's move on to our big match preview. There are actually very few big ties in Europe this weekend. I mean, the biggest one in Serie A is probably Napoli versus Sampdoria, Wolfsburg against Frankfurt in the Bundesliga, PSG versus Lyon is obviously a big game as well. But the biggest game, without doubt, is in La Liga. It's probably the biggest of the last maybe 3 weeks or so. Atletico Madrid versus Real Madrid on Saturday night at 8 p.m. This sees first take on fourth in a massive tie for the title race. Henry, you watched Real Madrid last night before UCL review, and you were pretty impressed, but their league form's been iffy.
That's right. If you haven't watched UCL review, what are you doing? It's been out for a couple of days. It's true, they were really, really impressive against Mönchengladbach. You would never have known that their La Liga form has been pretty poor recently. Just one win in their last 4 league games. That's a 1 draw and 2 losses. And that's seen them fall to 5th in the division, 6 points behind this weekend's opponents, Atletico Madrid, who have had an absolutely storming start to the season, as I'm sure McCubs will get onto later. Atletico also have a game in hand as well. But the Mönchengladbach result was a continuation that maybe they're beginning to turn things around. Last weekend they got a crucial win against Sevilla, away from home, 1-0, secured through an own goal from their keeper, Bunu, forgive me for my pronunciation of that. It's the kind of result that we saw them churn out at the end of last season when they went on that kind of that run which saw them sweep the way to the La Liga title. But they did deserve to win it too. XG had it at 1.7 to 0.5 in their favour, albeit Sevilla can't really score that often at the moment. But it just showed that kind of solidarity to Real Madrid's game, which perhaps they've been listening. And maybe they have been a little bit hard done by in the league. They rank 4th for goals, 2nd for shots per game, and 12th for shots against per game, and are the 4th best side according to expected points. So, I mean, not really, I suppose, in that regard. They still should be in Champions League contention. I still don't see any way that they wouldn't finish out the top 4 this season in La Liga. But it is still a little bit shaky. They've gone from conceding just 8.9 shots a game, that was the 2nd best behind Getafe in 1920, to 10.8. And that means their expected goals against per game have leapt to 1.3 from 0.9 in 2019-20. And it is little margins like that do make the difference, certainly in a league like La Liga. If we look at the player stats, only Benzema and he's on 4 goals, Valverde has 3. And they're the only 2 who have scored more than 2 league goals. Rodrigo as well with assists, and Benzema, they're the only ones above more than 1 assist. So like I said, I think we touched upon this last week, they're really kind of struggling to score. Luka Jovic, I'm not even going to dig into him that much. I feel like we've talked about him a lot, but he's just His days as a Real Madrid forward are numbered, in my opinion. I don't think he's going anywhere far. I'm not going to go into Vinicius. I think it's become a bit of like a boring joke on this, but I still just think his decision making in the final third is fairly abysmal. And Rodrigo's looked pretty exceptional, but they created so many chances against a Mönchengladbach side who, to be honest, defensively shocking, have been in Bundesliga this season, but they did show that they can create opportunities. Salzburg created so many chances to score against Atletico Madrid, who maybe there is an opportunity to take it there. But we return to this game. If Real Madrid lose, there will be a 9-point gap, which could stretch to 12 points. And that could be the end of their title challenge. With Barcelona out of the title challenge pretty much as well, that would be a huge... I don't think Diego Simeone could have possibly have dreamed this kind of situation could have emerged. So yeah, a really big opportunity for Atletico Madrid. But after this midweek game, I do have confidence that Los Blancos can resort to form and pull out a result.
Oh, well, we'll come back for your prediction in just a minute. But McCubs, we've got to talk Atleti. Through in the Champions League, unbeaten in the league. I mean, what a phenomenal start.
Yeah, they've had an amazing start, haven't they? They've won every game since match week 3. So they've won the last 7 games, is it? 8 wins and 2 draws in total. One of only 6 teams still unbeaten in Europe's top 5 leagues. Only PSG have more than their 26 points. And they've played 3 more games in Ligue 1. So yeah, they've just been entirely dominant, haven't they? And it's pretty mad. Like, they've won 7 consecutive league games. They've only conceded 1 goal in that time, and I think in all competitions they've only conceded 1 goal in their last 7 as well, which was against Bayern Munich. They've scored 15 in that time. We've made a lot of we've spoken a lot about how their attack is functioning a lot better this season. How obviously João Felix has taken a step up. Luis Suarez has had a great effect on the side. That midfield is just thrusting the side forward in a way that we haven't seen in a couple of years at least. But yeah, the defence remains as good as ever. Jan Oblak is in, even by his standards, amazing form. And yeah, they haven't conceded in the league since the end of October. So really, it's the best of both worlds for Simeone, and they kind of look back to their kind of mid 2010s kind of pomp, don't they? Obviously, yeah, the form of Real Madrid, the form of Barcelona has kind of thrown it into greater light. I think the quality of La Liga in general, at least those top 2, is obviously quite a lot lower than it was a few years ago. I think La Liga is probably an easier league to win at this stage than it was a few years ago in that sense, at least for a club of Atleti's quality. So yeah, we've been kind of tipping them to put together a really convincing title challenge for the last few years, and it looks like finally it's going to happen now. If we go into their stats a little bit, I'll touch upon them briefly. They rank first for shots with 13.3, which is pretty low for the top shooting team in the division. You usually expect that to be more around the 16-17 mark, but weirdly 10th for shots against, but still have the second best defence according to expected goals behind Athletic Club. Clearly, as we're used to seeing, they're limiting opponents to mainly shots from outside the box. I think that goes some way to explain why Oblak's save percentage is so high, even if he is in such good form. They're rated as the 3rd best side according to expected points. I think at this stage of the season it's a little bit difficult to draw too much from that, to be honest, but they've played 2 fewer games than the teams that are above them, Sociedad and Villarreal. So yeah, clearly the best team in the league this season. Like we said, João Felix has been excellent, 5 goals and 2 assists. Suarez also 5 goals and an assist. Kieran Trippier has carried on his excellent form from last season, hasn't he? He's averaging 3.6 tackles and interceptions, also creating a chance a game. Luckily for him, he's not the side's only chance creator this season, so that burden's been taken off him a little bit. But yeah, second in the squad for key passes, first for passes into the penalty area and progressive passes. He's very much involved in almost every element of Atleti's attacking play, so fair play to him. Has really proved a lot of doubters wrong since moving to the Spanish capital. And perhaps the biggest surprise of all, Yannick Carrasco has been excellent, hasn't he? 7 La Liga appearances so far, 2 goals, 2.4 shots a game, 3 key passes, and completing over 4 dribbles as well. So he's been really key to that attack as well in recent weeks. Really good to see him coming back into form. So yeah, but nevertheless, this is a massive game for them. Obviously, they beat Barcelona a few weeks back in probably less than convincing performance, if I'm honest. But also overcame Valencia away from home. And obviously, now face Real and then play Sociedad on the 22nd. So this is going to be a really pivotal 2 weeks for their title race. And like Henry, I kind of feel like Real will come away with this just because.
Really?
I just can't see, Atleti could go 12 points clear with that game in hand if they win this game. And not really based on any hard evidence. I just can't see I can't see the Liga title race being over this early.
Okay, you're just sort of praying.
I just feel like it's bound to happen that Real will win this. I
can't see a scenario where Atleti lose this. I just think they'll be so determined not to lose this game. I actually don't think it will be a particularly entertaining game at all. I think it will be a draw. I'm going with 1-1. Henry, what's your score prediction?
I'm going to go for 1-0 to Real Madrid, although I've got most of them wrong.
McCubs, what do you reckon?
I'm very similar. 2-1 Real Madrid. I just think that it's going to be one of those mad games, and Real Madrid might fluke it, but I just see it going to Real.
Fair. Henry, sorry, what were you about to say?
We talked about it yesterday. Sergio Ramos being back, I think that is a really big deal to that back line of Real Madrid. I think that will. It looks pretty shaky. I do think that Ramos, he certainly won't want to see Atletico Madrid create such a lead, and I think having a player like him back there could really almost be the key to at least firing up this Madrid side to do a job.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, I think he will make an enormous difference. I just feel like Atleti, this run, this form, they're not going to let this slip. They actually haven't won any of their last 8 matches in all competitions against Real, but they have drawn 5 of those, with just 3 defeats in that time. So I'm going with a 1-1 draw, but get your score predictions in the comments down below, and let's very quickly move on to a quickfire question. Our quickfire question, which we're going to do absolutely rapidly because we have spoken for ages today, and I think McCubs has got some computer charging issues, whatever. Anyway, it comes in from Adele Carr, series of numbers. Who is the biggest underdog going into the Champions League knockouts? I mean, surprisingly this year, Henry, there doesn't, as you were saying, there isn't really any underdogs, but have you got any outside bets for the knockouts?
I still think Leipzig have looked really, really impressive. There's no shame in losing a couple of games as they did in their group with PSG and Manchester United. So I think Leipzig could go deep. To be fair, Atalanta, for all of their struggles in Serie A, they've looked pretty solid on the continent, and really won at Liverpool and then went and beat Ajax on their own turf again. So those two maybe, but I don't think there's a massive underdog. I think it will probably play out just as we imagined. I think one of the big boys, Bayern and Liverpool, will go all the way. But I said yesterday, Chelsea, I still think they're looking really good.
Fair enough. McCubs, who do you reckon?
Can you call them an underdog seeing as they went to the semi-finals last year? I just think Leipzig are going to always be a problem for teams. They proved that last term. This season, obviously, without Timo Werner, I think there's kind of been a perception that they're kind of a little bit of a blunted sword, but as we've seen, they're just so tactically well set up. They've got so many players who can play multiple positions. They're so tactically flexible that over 2 legs, I just back them against. They've got a chance against any team. I think over 2 legs. That's what I'm trying to say.
Fair. I think there will be some monster ties, to be fair, because Liverpool, Man City, and Chelsea could face Barcelona, and who was the other big team that finished second? Atletico Madrid, of course. So there's some potentially massive ties in terms of an underdog. I'd like to say Lazio, but I haven't really been that impressed with them this year. I think they kind of got pretty lucky to go through in the end. I might say I think Chelsea will go a lot further than people think. I think they're quite a good bet for even a semi-final. I don't think there are that many outstanding teams in Europe this year. But guys, who are your dark horses or underdogs for the Champions League this year? Let us know in the comments down below. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode. We talked crazy transfers, we talked the Madrid derby, and we talked about Champions League underdogs. Get your thoughts about it in the comments down below. Henry, what should they go and watch now?
Well, if you are loving the Pogba saga as much as we are, then I believe the podcast was all about featured part of Pogba as well. So go listen to that. And as always, check out the Football Pyramids. In my opinion, it's the most enjoyable. It's one of the best things that we do. And, Dougie continues to amaze with his presenting abilities. So, go check that out.
Not sure about that. He's an absolute
Tarrant.
fraud. That, from what I've heard, he's an absolute fraud. That guy. Anyway, McCubs, what would you like to push to?
Go and check out EFD Explains. We've got quite a few up now. We had the
Yes.
Real Madrid and Barcelona ones. Then more recently, we did one on Scottish football, and then one about the USA and why they're producing so much talent. So go and check out those. We've got one on Arteta and Arsene Wenger coming out, I believe, this weekend. So get your teeth stuck into that one as well. Great script by Pat. Great edit by Danny Pape, voiced by myself, so a real team effort on that one. But yeah, really interesting video about why, maybe we were always wrong about Arsene Wenger, and evidenced by the failings of Unai Emery and Mikel Arteta.
Absolutely. Did you hear that, Arsenal Fan TV? That's at you. No, I'm joking. Anyway, if you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to like the video, even leave a comment and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time. Bye.